Hello, my movie peeps. I just got done watching The Boogeyman, and with The Boogeyman inspired by the Stephen King short story, we follow two sisters who begin to get haunted by an evil entity that lurks in their closet in dark spaces. Together, they must figure out a way to stop the Boogeyman. That's all pretty much it. Without giving any spoilers to you guys, this will be a spoiler-free review. When you come across a horror movie called The Boogeyman, I don't think your standards are really set that high. That, and it's also one of the most generic names you can give to some evil monster. But funny enough, following the behind the scenes of this movie, it was supposed to originally just go straight to streaming. But whenever they started doing test screenings for this movie, audiences seemed to really like it, so they thought, let's put it in theaters. That alone piqued my interest, along with the trailer doing some clever things involving a glowing moon. I thought, okay, I'm gonna put that silly name aside and see if this could be any good, and you know what? I thought it was decent. I think this is actually a good PG13 horror movie. Like, I'm gonna be open and honest with you guys. A lot of what happens in The Boogeyman, I feel like you have maybe seen 10 other times in other horror movies. In fact, I can see people walking out of this movie and going, this kind of just felt like Lights Out. In fact, a lot of what our characters have to go through here in staying away from the dark, staying in lit areas, some weaknesses this monster has, very reminiscent to Lights Out. With that also, I feel like the story is also pretty predictable. You can see where it's maybe headed and some of the twists and turns that might come along the way. But even with some of those shortcomings and it feeling almost like a cliche horror movie, for all the cliches it does tackle, I say it tackles them well. Because look, when you're presenting a PG-13 horror movie, you're not going to have the violence. You're not going to have the blood. You're not going to have even the kill count. And those are some things I kind of enjoy in my horror movies. But you make up for it with good suspense, a good story, fun characters, and I feel like this has that. The movie definitely relies on setting up a bunch of jump scares throughout the movie where the monster's gonna pop out at you, and while there's a couple of them that feel a little cheap, I think most of them were super creative. I think a lot of the light work they do in here, like involving that little glowing moon the little girl has, playing with the audience of what's in that closet or what's in this corner, I thought was fun. My audience was super engaged in the movie. People were jumping, getting scared, and immediately after kind of giggling, you know, that laugh you do when you almost get in a car accident. Oh my god. Whew, that got me. I think there's also some nice themes going on here about loss and grieving that loss. The two sisters in this movie had just lost a mother and now they're having to deal with this boogeyman in their life. There's some good parallels about letting go, moving on, or dealing with that grief. And even on top of that, the two sisters in here I thought were fantastic. Sophie Thatcher, I already enjoyed her in the show Yellow Jackets, and she plays almost a completely different character here. I like they didn't go the stereotypical route of like a moody teenager, I just lost my mom, don't talk to me. This girl actually wants someone to talk to, somebody to just give her a hug and deal with this, and no one's really there for her. Vivian Blair, who you might have just seen as little Princess Leia in the Obi-Wan series, she was hilarious and so great in this movie. She has a couple of really chilling sequences in this movie. One involving her playing the PlayStation, which again just kind of goes to the creative lighting choices in this movie, and another one involving a tooth. And it was sequences like that that really made up for the fact that it wasn't rated R to me, because I felt like if this was rated R, you could have done something more here. This might have been like a hidden gem, a cult classic. You can feel at times the movie holding itself back and cutting away from things it maybe wanted to show you. When getting on to the monster or the boogeyman thing in this movie, I was like 50-50 on the design. At some points it looks really unique, different, and cool, especially towards the end with some of the things it does. In other moments, it felt generic. It felt like I kind of have seen a monster like this in other movies. But I think what kind of really helped it excel it to me is like the rules they added on top of it, not just the fact that it gets you in the dark, you have to stay in the light. This creature also had other different powers and abilities, and I feel like with a horror movie, that's just always something you kind of need in there, right? Is this unstoppable, super overpowered creature, but if you follow these like 5 rules, you might make it out alive. I feel like that's what makes horror movies fun, right? So look, the Boogeyman isn't anything groundbreaking or something you haven't seen done 1,000 times in other horror movies, but it does all those things really well. I definitely see why it wasn't a straight to streaming movie, because it is much better than a lot of the straight to streaming horror movies we kind of get. My only other final gripe with the movie that like I feel like this would have made it so much more perfect but brought it down a letter grade for me is, I'm just gonna say minor spoilers, okay? I'll put this away when they do a sequel bait thing at the end, you know? And I felt like this would have been a perfect one and done kind of movie. It's just set up the characters, you set up the monster, they go through everything. Why you gotta set up another one at the end? I know that's how horror movies work, but that made it feel cheap, and it's like, Yeah, this is a studio horror movie, all right. But other than that, I felt like The Boogeyman was actually a pretty great time. So for The Boogeyman, I'm gonna give action 2.5 stars. A lot of the movie is built on slow, suspenseful moments. Do not be buying crunchy food at this film, because let me tell you, the person next to me had chips, and I felt like the whole theater could hear their munching. But when the creature is in action, it is pretty cool to see. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. It's not really a super funny film, but the little sister in here does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of humor, and she got me chuckling a bunch. Drama in the film, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I enjoyed the story that they told here. Nothing too complex, nothing too crazy, not a lot of twists and turns, but for a simple story, I thought it was effective. Horror in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. You know, I always get asked when seeing a horror movie, was it scary? And it's like one of the most annoying questions whenever going to see a horror movie, because it's like, we're grown people, we know these movies are fake. It takes a lot for a film to truly scare you. And while this movie definitely has its moments that is gonna make you jump, that might make you creeped out, at the end of the day, I still feel it's a pretty tame movie, and a lot of that is because of the PG-13 rating. Suspense in the film, though, I am going to give it 3.5 stars. I thought that's one thing they did really effectively. If you're not going to be truly terrified or scared, I think you at least will be on the edge of your seat in moments, and then when that jump scare's over, you come back to reality. Whoop, there goes gravity. Casual movie fans, I'm going to give it a B+. Cinephiles, I'm going to give it a B-. And critically, I'm going to give it a C+. For The Boogeyman, I feel like this is a movie definitely worth watching in theaters. Don't be expecting too much crazy things, but this movie definitely goes on the list of PG-13 horror movies that actually turned out great. Who knows if we'll see more of this world, but if we do, I'd be willing to give it a chance just to see what other creative things they could do with lights in this monster. Let me know what you guys thought about The Boogeyman, if you've already seen it or if you plan to go see it. Anything and everything, be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.